Hello, welcome to the Self-Learning Podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start discussion on Chapter 8, Social Movements. And our topic is Workers' Movements. Factory production began in India in the early part of the 1860s. You will recall our discussion on the specific character of industrialization in the colonial period. The general pattern of trade set up by the colonial regime was one under which raw materials were procured from India and goods manufactured in the United Kingdom were marketed in the colony. These factories were thus established in the port towns of Calcutta and Bombay. Later factories were also set up in Madras. Tea plantation in Assam was established as early as 1839. In the early stages of colonialism, labor was very cheap, as the colonial government did not regulate either wages or working conditions. You will remember the manner in which the colonial government ensured supply of labor in the tea plantations. Though trade unions emerged later, workers did protest. Their actions then were, however, more spontaneous than sustained. Some of the nationalist leaders also drew in the workers into the anti-colonial movements. The war led to the expansion of industries in the country, but it also brought a great deal of misery to the poor. There were food shortages and sharp increase in prices. There were waves of strikes in the textile mills of Bombay. In September and October 1917, there were around 30 recorded strikes. Jute workers in Calcutta struck work. In Madras, the workers of Buckingham and the Carnatic mills struck work for increased wages. Textile workers in Ahmedabad struck work for increase in wages by 50%. The first trade union was established in April 1918 in Madras by the B.P. Wadia, a social worker and member of the Theosophical Society. During the same year, Mahatma Gandhi founded the Textile Labour Association, TLA. In 1920, the All India Trade Union Congress was formed in Bombay. The AITUC was a broad-based organization involving diverse ideologies. The main ideological groups were the communists led by S.A. Dung and M.N. Roy, the moderates led by M.N. Joshi and V.V. Giri, and the nationalists which involved people like Lala Rajpat Rai and Jawaharlal Nehru. The formation of the AITUC made the colonial government more cautious in dealing with labor. It attempted to grant workers some concessions in order to contain unrest. In 1922, the government passed the Fourth Factories Act, which reduced the working hour to 10 hours. And in 1926, the Trade Unions Act was passed, which provided for registration of trade unions and proposed some regulations. By the mid-1920s, the AITUC was nearly 200 unions affiliated to it, and its membership stood at around 250,000. During the last few years of the British rule, the communists gained considerable control over the AITUC. NCUC. The Indian National Congress chose to form another union called the Indian National Trade Union Congress INTUC in May 1947. The split in the AITUC in 1947 paved the way for further split on the line of the political parties. Apart from the working class movement being divided on the lines of political parties, at the national level, regional parties too started to form their own unions from the late 1960s. In 1966-67, the economy suffered a major recession, which led to a decrease in production and consequently employment. There was a general unrest. In 1974, there was a major railway workers' strike. The confrontation between the state and trade unions became acute. During the emergency in 1975 to 77, the government curbed all trade unions' activities. This again was short-lived. The workers' movement were very much part of the wider struggle for civil liberties. In the contemporary context of globalization, you have read about the changes affecting labor. The challenges before the trade unions was also of a new nature. You need to go back to chapter 5 and 6 to understand these. Now let us wind up the session and thank you very much for engaging yourself with the self-learning podcast.